It was a crowded afternoon at a downtown airport cafe. Travelers rushed past with rolling suitcases, announcements echoed overhead, and the smell of coffee filled the air. Sitting quietly at a small table near the window was an older man wearing a dark jacket and jeans. No security, no entourage, just a calm presence and a cup of black coffee. That man was Steven Seagal. To most people passing by, he looked like just another retired guy killing time before a flight. He kept his head down, scrolling on his phone, completely unbothered by the chaos around him. That's when a loud voice cut through the noise. "Hey, old man, you gonna move or what?" A tall, aggressive-looking bully stood nearby, clearly irritated and looking for attention. He had bumped into Steven's chair and expected an apology. Steven slowly looked up, his face calm, eyes steady. "I'm fine right here," Steven said quietly. The bully laughed. "You hear this guy? Acting tough." He looked around, making sure people were watching. "You blocking the way, Grandpa." Steven didn't react. He simply took another sip of his coffee. That silence seemed to anger the bully even more. "What, you can't hear me?" The man snapped, stepping closer. "You think you're special or something?" A few people nearby started paying attention. Someone whispered, "This doesn't look good." Another person pulled out their phone. Steven stood up slowly, not aggressively, just enough to face the man. He was calm, almost too calm. "There's no problem here," Steven said. "Let's keep it that way." The bully scoffed. "You don't tell me what to do." "Well," and then without warning the bully slapped Steven Seagal across the face. The sound echoed through the cafe. Gasps filled the air. A woman covered her mouth. Someone shouted, "Hey, what's wrong with you?" Phones were now fully raised, recording everything. Steven didn't fall. He didn't raise his hands. He didn't strike back. He simply turned his head back slowly, his expression unchanged. The bully smirked, clearly proud of himself. "That's what I thought," he said loudly. "All bark, no bite." But what the bully didn't know, what no one there knew yet, was that this wasn't just an old man he had slapped in public, and that single moment was about to trigger consequences far beyond anything he could imagine. For a few seconds after the slap, the entire cafe went silent. You could hear the hum of the coffee machines, the distant airport announcements, even the soft buzz of phones recording. Everyone was waiting for Steven Seagal to react, but he didn't. Steven slowly adjusted his jacket, straightened his posture, and calmly looked at the man in front of him. There was no anger in his eyes, only control, the kind of calm that made people uneasy. "You shouldn't have done that," Steven said quietly. The bully laughed loudly, clapping his hands once. "Oh yeah? And what are you going to do about it?" He took a step closer, invading Steven's personal space. "You gonna cry? Call security? Or you gonna pretend you're some kind of tough guy?" A woman nearby whispered to her friend, "Why is he doing this?" The man didn't even fight back. Another man shook his head. "This is messed up." And Steven glanced around briefly. He could see families, elderly travelers, even a young couple with a baby watching nervously. He lowered his voice, almost as if trying to de-escalate the situation. "Walk away," Steven said. "This doesn't need to go any further." That only fueled the bully's ego. "Listen to this guy," the bully said loudly, spreading his arms so everyone could see. "He thinks he's in charge now." Phones were fully raised at this point. Someone muttered, "This is going online for sure." Another voice shouted, "Leave him alone, man." The bully turned toward the crowd. "Mind your business." He turned back to Steven and poked him in the chest. "You think you're better than everyone here? Huh?" Steven looked down at the finger on his chest, then back into the bully's eyes. "I think everyone deserves respect," he replied calmly. The bully scoffed. "Respect? You earn respect." He shoved Steven lightly. Not enough to knock him down, but enough to cross another line. Gasps echoed again. A security guard in the distance noticed the commotion but hadn't reached them yet. Steven exhaled slowly. Anyone who knew him well would recognize that breath. It wasn't fear. It was restraint. "Last warning," Steven said, his voice low but firm. "Walk away." The bully grinned. "Or what?" The tension in the room was unbearable. People stopped walking. Conversations died. Everyone sensed something was about to happen. Have you ever seen someone bullied in public like this? Comment below and tell us which country and city you're watching this from. The bully leaned in closer. "You know what I see?" he sneered. An old man pretending he still matters. A man from the crowd yelled, "That's enough." Another added, "Security's coming." But the bully didn't care. He wanted the attention. He wanted dominance. Steven remained still balanced, composed, grounded. His hands were relaxed at his sides. His eyes never left the bully's face. "You've made your choice," Steven said softly. Those words sent a chill through the room, not because they were loud, but because of how controlled they were. The bully laughed again, but this time it sounded forced. Unbeknownst to him, multiple calls had already been made. Airport security was on the way, and somewhere beyond the cafe walls, a chain of events had already been set in motion. The situation was no longer just about a slap. It was about to become something much bigger. The bully's laughter echoed, but it was no longer confident. There was a strange tension in his voice now, like someone laughing to convince themselves they were still in control. Steven Seagal didn't move. He stood there calmly, feet planted, shoulders relaxed, breathing steady. To the untrained eye, he looked passive, but to anyone paying close attention, there was something different in the air, something deliberate. "You hear me?" the bully said, raising his voice. "I said, or what?" Steven finally spoke again, and this time, his voice carried weight. "Or you walk away while you still can," he said. The cafe seemed to shrink around them. People leaned back in their seats. Some instinctively stepped away, as if they could sense that this moment mattered. The bully rolled his eyes. "Oh wow," he said sarcastically. "You threatening me now?" Steven shook his head slowly. "I'm warning you." That was it. The bully's face twisted with anger. "You don't warn me," he snapped, shoving Steven harder this time. A woman screamed. Someone yelled, "Stop it." Steven took half a step back, not from fear, but to regain balance. He raised one hand, palm open, a universal signal to de-escalate. "This is your last chance," Steven said calmly. Instead of backing off, the bully did the opposite. He puffed out his chest, emboldened by the crowd and the cameras. "What are you gonna do?" he shouted. "Show us some old man karate?" A few people laughed nervously. Most didn't. Steven's eyes narrowed, not in rage, but in focus. He glanced around again, noticing a young boy clutching his mother's leg, watching with wide eyes. He noticed an elderly couple standing frozen near the counter. Innocent people, unnecessary danger. Steven took a slow breath. "Not here," he said quietly. "Not like this." The bully misinterpreted the words as surrender. "That's what I thought," he said, reaching out again, this time grabbing Steven by the collar. Everything stopped. The room fell dead silent. Steven's hand moved not fast, not flashy but precise. In one controlled motion, he removed the bully's grip and stepped slightly to the side, breaking contact without throwing a punch. The bully stumbled back, shocked. "What the?" he muttered. Steven didn't attack. He didn't strike. He simply stood there, composed, eyes locked on the bully. "You don't want to do this," Steven said firmly now. "You're not in control anymore." For the first time, doubt flickered across the bully's face. "Back off," someone shouted from the crowd. "Security's almost here," another voice added. The bully looked around and realized something had changed. The crowd wasn't on his side anymore. The phones weren't cheering him on. They were documenting him. Still, his pride wouldn't let him retreat. "You think you're better than me?" he snapped. "Because you're calm?" Steven answered without hesitation. "No," he said. "Because I'm disciplined." That word landed hard. The bully clenched his fists. His breathing grew heavy. He was trapped between anger and fear, between walking away and doubling down. "If you were standing there watching this happen, what would you do? Step in, call for help, or stay silent? Let me know in the comments." The bully suddenly lashed out again, throwing a wild punch, reckless, emotional, desperate. Steven sidestepped it effortlessly. Gasps erupted around the cafe. Steven placed one hand on the bully's wrist, applied just enough pressure to stop him, and then immediately released it. No pain, no harm, just control. "Enough," Steven said sharply. That single word carried more authority than all the bullies shouting combined. Airport security finally rushed in, pushing through the crowd. "What's going on here?" one guard demanded. The bully immediately pointed at Steven. "This guy attacked me." The crowd erupted in protest. "No, he didn't. You started it. We saw everything." Security looked at Steven, then at the dozens of phones pointed in their direction. Steven raised both hands slowly. "I don't want trouble," he said calmly. I just want this to end. The bully was sweating now. His confidence had completely evaporated. As security began separating them, one guard leaned toward another and whispered something after taking a closer look at Steven's face. The guard's eyes widened slightly. Steven noticed but said nothing. The bully didn't see it. He was too busy trying to save face, too busy realizing too late that he had pushed the wrong man in the wrong place at the worst possible time, because what he thought was a public humiliation was about to become a public awakening. Airport security quickly positioned themselves between Steven Seagal and the bully. The immediate danger had passed, but the tension in the cafe hadn't disappeared. If anything, it had transformed, shifting from chaos to anticipation. One of the guards spoke firmly. Sir, I need you to step back. The bully threw his hands up. Finally, you gonna do something about this guy? He said, pointing at Steven. He tried to attack me. A wave of voices rose from the crowd. That's not what happened. We all saw it. He was defending himself. Security exchanged looks. One of them glanced at Steven again, longer this time. His expression changed, subtle, but unmistakable. Sir, the guard said respectfully to Steven, lowering his voice, may I ask you to come with us for a moment? Steven nodded calmly. Of course, the bully smirked. Yeah, that's right. Take him away. As Steven stepped forward, a middle-aged man near the counter frowned deeply. He had been watching closely from the beginning. Wait, the man said slowly. That face, that voice, his eyes widened. Isn't that Steven Seagal? The words cut through the air like a blade. A woman nearby gasped. Steven Seagal? The actor? Another person leaned closer, squinting. No way. That is him. Murmurs rippled through the cafe, spreading fast. Action movies. Martial arts legend. He's trained law enforcement. The bully laughed nervously. Yeah, right. You people believe anything. Steven didn't confirm it. He didn't deny it either. He simply stood there, hands relaxed, expression neutral. The guard's posture straightened. Sir, he said again, even more respectfully now. Thank you for your cooperation. That small change in tone didn't go unnoticed. The bully's smirk faded slightly. So what if he's famous? He snapped. That don't mean anything, but the energy in the room had already shifted. Another bystander, a younger man who had been quietly filming, spoke up. I think there's more to this than people realize. The bully shot him a look. Oh yeah? Like what? The man hesitated, then said, I work in government. And I recognize him too. Not just from movies. The cafe grew quiet again. What does that mean? Someone whispered. Steven finally spoke, not loudly, not dramatically. Let's not make assumptions, he said calmly. I'd like to keep this simple, but it was already too late for that. One of the security guards received a message over his radio. He listened carefully, his face growing serious with every word. Yes, sir, he replied. Understood. He turned to Steven. Sir, would you mind waiting here just a moment? Steven nodded again. Take your time. The bully crossed his arms, trying to hide the unease creeping into his posture. What's going on? He demanded. You checking his autograph or something? No one laughed. People were whispering now, not excited whispers, but cautious ones. That guard looks nervous. Why are they being so careful? Who is this guy really? The bully shifted his weight. Hey, he said louder. You gonna deal with him or what? The guard ignored him. Moments later, two senior officials entered the cafe, not airport security this time, but men in dark suits with earpieces. The room froze. One of them scanned the crowd, then locked eyes with Steven. He walked straight toward him and spoke quietly, respectfully. Mr. Seagal, he said, thank you for remaining calm. The bully's face drained of color. What is this? He stammered. Phone zoomed in. The whispers turned into gasps. Steven sighed softly. I didn't want this, he said under his breath. The suited man nodded. We understand, but certain protocols can't be ignored. The bully took a step back. Protocols? For him? The second suited official glanced at the bully for the first time, his expression cold and assessing like a man measuring consequences. Sir, he said flatly, you need to lower your voice. The bully swallowed hard. In that moment, he realized something was terribly wrong. This wasn't about a slap anymore. This wasn't about ego, and this definitely wasn't about winning. Whatever truth was coming out, it was bigger than him. The cafe no longer felt like a public space. It felt like a controlled zone. Two suited officials stood beside Steven Seagal, their posture alert but respectful. Airport security quietly cleared a small perimeter, asking people to step back. Phones were still recording, but now hands were shaking, not with excitement, but disbelief. The bully stood frozen near the table, his earlier arrogance draining away by the second. "I don't understand," he said, forcing a laugh that didn't land. "Why are they treating him like this?" One of the suited officials turned toward Steven. "Sir, are you okay?" he asked. Steven nodded. "I'm fine. No one needs to make a big deal out of this." The official gave a small nod of respect. Understood. That exchange alone sent a clear message to everyone watching. The bully took a step forward. "Hey," he said, his voice noticeably weaker. "He touched me. You gonna just ignore that?" Steven turned to face him slowly. "I didn't touch you to hurt you," Steven said evenly. "I stopped you from hurting others." The words were calm, but they carried undeniable authority. The bully scoffed weakly. "You think you're some kind of hero?" Steven didn't answer right away. He looked around the cafe at the frightened faces, the parents holding their children close, the elderly couple still standing in shock. Then he spoke. "No," Steven said. "I think everyone here deserved safety." The room fell quiet. One of the suited officials stepped forward. "Sir," he said to the bully, "we need you to cooperate." The bully's eyes darted around. "Cooperate with what?" "With the investigation," the official replied calmly. "Investigation?" the bully snapped. "For what?" "He started it." The crowd reacted instantly. "No, you did. We saw everything. There's video." The bully clenched his fists. "This is ridiculous." Steven raised one hand slightly, not to threaten, but to calm the room. "Please," he said. "Let's keep this civil." That single gesture worked. The shouting died down. The suited official leaned closer to Steven. "Sir, given the circumstances, we strongly advise relocating to a secure area." Steven hesitated. "I don't want special treatment." "You're not getting special treatment," the official replied quietly. "You're getting necessary protection." The bully overheard that. "Protection?" he repeated, his voice cracking. "Protection from who?" The second suited official finally addressed him directly. "From the situation you created," he said flatly. The bully swallowed hard. At that moment, a senior airport manager approached, clearly flustered. "Is there a problem here?" One of the suited men showed his credentials discreetly. The manager's eyes widened. "Understood," he said immediately. "Whatever you need." The bully noticed. "Hey," he barked. "You gonna show me some respect too?" The official turned slowly. "Respect is earned," he said, "not taken by force." Those words hit harder than any punch. Steven spoke again, his voice firm but controlled. "You slapped me because you thought I was weak," he said. "You thought silence meant fear." The bully looked away. "Real strength," Steven continued, "is knowing when not to strike. Do you believe real power is staying calm instead of reacting? Type control in the comments if you agree. Dan? The bully's shoulders sagged. His confidence was gone. The crowd could feel it, the complete reversal of power. "What happens now?" the bully muttered. The suited official answered without emotion. "Now, we document everything." Security began collecting witness statements. Several people stepped forward immediately, eager to tell the truth. Others held up their phones, offering video evidence. Steven watched quietly, his face unreadable. A young man from the crowd called out, "Sir, why didn't you fight back?" Steven turned toward him. "Because violence teaches nothing when pride is involved," he said. The cafe was silent again, but this time, it wasn't fear. It was respect. The bully was escorted to the side, no longer loud, no longer dominant, just a man confronting the consequences of his choices. Steven remained where he was, calm as ever, but the final truth, the one that would completely seal the bully's fate, had not yet been spoken. And when it came, there would be no way to escape it. The cafe had fallen into a heavy, uneasy silence. Airport security and the suited officials moved with quiet efficiency now. Witnesses were being organized, videos collected, statements noted. The bully sat stiffly in a chair near the wall, his earlier bravado completely gone. His leg bounced uncontrollably, and he avoided eye contact with anyone who passed by. Steven Seagal stood a few steps away, hands calmly folded, expression neutral. If anything, he looked tired not from fear, but from disappointment. One of the suited officials spoke softly into his earpiece. then nodded. Yes, he said. He's still here. He turned to Steven. Sir, there's someone who needs to speak with you. Moments later, another man entered the cafe. He wasn't wearing a suit like the others. His presence alone commanded authority, straight posture, calm eyes, unmistakable confidence. Conversation stopped instantly. Some people instinctively lowered their phones. The man scanned the room, then his eyes settled on Steven. Dad, he said quietly. That single word changed everything. Steven looked up, surprise flickering across his face for just a moment. I told you not to come, he replied under his breath. The man gave a small, respectful smile. I know. But once this crossed certain lines, I didn't have a choice. Whispers exploded across the cafe. Did he just call him Dad? Who was that? Why does everyone look so serious? The man turned slightly, addressing the suited officials. Thank you. I'll take it from here. They stepped back immediately. The bully noticed. His eyes widened. Wait. Who is that? One of the security officers leaned toward another and whispered, That's the chief of Homeland Security. The words traveled like electricity. Gasps. Hands flying to mouths. Phones shaking as they zoomed in. The bully's face went pale. No, he muttered. That's not possible. Steven closed his eyes briefly, then exhaled. I didn't want my family involved, he said quietly. The man, his son, met his gaze. You weren't involved. You were assaulted. In public. He turned toward the bully for the first time. The temperature in the room seemed to drop. You, the chief said calmly, assaulted a private citizen in a federal facility. The bully tried to speak, but no words came out. I didn't know who he was, he stammered. The chief's voice remained steady. That's exactly the problem. The bully swallowed hard. I didn't know he was your father. That also, the chief replied, is irrelevant. The cafe was silent again, no whispers this time, just raw shock. Steven stepped forward slightly. This doesn't need to become something bigger, he said. I don't want favors. His son nodded. You won't get favors. You'll get fairness. He turned to the officers. Proceed by the book. The bully's knees visibly shook. One officer approached him. Sir, you are being detained for assault and disorderly conduct. The bully looked around desperately. People get slapped all the time. This is crazy. The chief met his eyes. No, people don't get slapped because someone thinks they're weak. The bully's head dropped as he was escorted away. He looked back at Steven, no anger left, only regret. I'm sorry, he muttered. Steven didn't respond immediately. Then he said quietly, I hope you learned something from this. The officers led the bully out of the cafe. The doors closed behind them, and the room let out a collective breath. It felt like it had been holding for an hour. People began clapping soft at first, then louder, not cheering violence, cheering restraint. Steven raised a hand gently. Please, he said. No applause. The clapping faded. He turned to his son. You didn't have to come. I know, the chief replied. But you taught me that authority means responsibility. Steven gave a small, proud smile. The chief then addressed the room. Let this be clear, he said calmly. Power does not come from intimidation. It comes from accountability. Heads nodded. Phones kept recording. Steven picked up his jacket. Let's go, he said. As they walked out together, the crowd parted in silence, no longer seeing an old man, no longer seeing a movie star. They were seeing something far more powerful, a man who had every reason to strike back, and chose restraint instead. And that moment, captured on dozens of phones, was about to change how the world saw strength. By the time the sun set that evening, the video was everywhere. Clips from dozens of angles flooded social media, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. Headlines followed within hours. Bully slaps Steven Seagal in public, instantly regrets it. Man assaults Steven Seagal, unaware his son is Homeland Security chief. Power without violence, a lesson the internet can't stop sharing. Millions watched the footage on repeat, not because of a fight, but because of what didn't happen. People expected anger. They expected retaliation. They expected a martial arts legend to strike back. Instead, they saw restraint. Comment sections exploded. This is what real strength looks like. The bully thought silence meant weakness. Respect to Steven Seagal for staying calm. Law enforcement officials weighed in. Martial artists analyzed Steven's body language. pointing out how controlled and deliberate every movement was. Psychologists discussed the power of de-escalation. Parents shared the video, saying they wanted their kids to understand what real discipline looked like. By the next morning, major news outlets had picked up the story. The bully's name was withheld, but the consequences were clear. Charges were filed. A public apology was issued through his attorney. Witnesses confirmed everything. Video evidence left no room for denial. There was no escaping accountability. Steven Seagal, however, stayed quiet. He declined interviews. He refused talk show appearances. He turned down offers to tell his side for ratings. Instead, he posted a single message online. Strength is not proven by how hard you strike, but by how much control you have when you could. That post went viral on its own. Thousands shared it. Millions liked it. People across cultures and countries resonated with the message. Later that week, Steven finally agreed to a short statement, just a few words. "I've spent my life studying combat," he said calmly, "but the most important lesson I ever learned is when not to use it." When asked about his son's involvement, Steven shook his head. "He didn't protect me," he said. "He protected the process." That line struck a chord. Meanwhile, footage of the bully being escorted away was juxtaposed online with Steven standing calmly, hands open, voice steady. The contrast was powerful. One acted from ego, the other from discipline, and the world noticed. Schools used the clip in discussions about bullying. Leadership coaches referenced it in seminars. Even law enforcement agencies cited it as an example of why de-escalation matters. The cafe where it happened became an unlikely landmark. Employees said people came in asking, "Is this where it happened?" Not to celebrate the slap, but to talk about the lesson. Steven Seagal returned to his life quietly, as he always had. No victory tour, no smug statements, just dignity. But the impact remained, because that day wasn't about fame, it wasn't about power, and it definitely wasn't about revenge. It was about something far more rare, self-control in a moment where violence would have been easy, and in a world full of noise, outrage, and reaction, that calm spoke louder than any punch ever could. If you believe real strength is staying calm when you have power, type respect in the comments. And if you want more powerful, real-life stories that inspire discipline, justice, and humanity, subscribe and stay with us.